Hi, welcome to episode 180 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my hand-spun yarns. And we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. If you haven't come and joined us, please do. Hi, how are you? I hope that you are having a wonderful weekend. It is it is Sunday, April 22nd. It is kind of spring-like out. It's in the 50s and a little bit rainy, and the sun keeps peeking through. And because it was rainy, I picked up a sweater to wear today. And you know what? Now I'm really, really warm. This is my floating down cardigan, is what I call it. It is the Snowbird cardigan by Heidi Kermeyer, I believe. And I knit it out of Handspun. It was Hello Yarn BFL in the floating down colorway. So I knit this a while ago. It is warm and oversized and cozy, and actually I think I'm going to take it off because I am super warm right now. So how are you? I hope you've had a wonderful week. Ours was very busy. We were out most of the nights of the week doing various things. And so I did not get as much done as I had hoped to. So there'll be lots of talking and not a ton of showing. On Wednesday I had knit night. On Thursday we went to a very nice dinner that celebrated my husband's 10 years with his company, which is a pretty big milestone. And then on Friday night I attended Knitting in the Heartland, which is our local guild's biannual conference, and I attended Franklin Habit as a keynote speaker. I'm going to talk about Knitting in the Heartland in the spinning section because I don't have much to report on. So I will do tea and knits, and then I'll talk a little bit about the class that I took and the keynote, and then of course what I bought in the marketplace. So let's get started. Today I am drinking Dragon Claw Oolong. This is from Tea Runners, my Tea Runners subscription. I get 4 teas a month. This is an oolong tea, and it said it's called Dragon Claw because as the tea leaves open, they resemble claws unfurling. It's supposed to have a nutty toasted finish with sweet tartness of apricot. I really like oolongs. You can look at tearunners.com for information about joining, and they also have a store where some of their teas are available. I don't know if this one is. I haven't looked yet. This is my first time trying it. I am trying it in a glass mug that I got with an infuser. I believe this was a present from my sister. So I just decided to throw it in there today. So nothing super special about the mug, and this is my oolong tea. Ooh, that is really good. It is pretty nutty. It's a little bit of a smoky black. I like oolongs. I find them to be a little bit less bitter than pure black tea, and so I really like that. I find them to be a very mild, although sometimes they can be super smoky, but oolong is one of my particular favorites, so this is delicious. So let's move on to the knits. I'm super excited to report that I finished my sweater. I actually finished it yesterday. It has not been blocked yet, but all the ends are woven in. This is my Wolf River by Melissa Seshwari. It was a kit from Craftsy, and I knit it out of the Craftsy. It's called the Bulky Twist Wool. I didn't see it actually on their website now. It was, like I said, part of a kit in Slate Heather. I made many modifications. I cast on and knit the body in the round. I knit the back in plain stockinette. I messed with the number of repeats, and of course I had to decide where to open for the armholes. I knit the sleeves mostly as written, although I knit them shorter than written because that's where they fell on me, and I did my cuffs in my twisted rib. I am super pleased with this. It fits very nicely. I'm going to block it so that the collar will lay a little bit flatter. And the lace might open up just a bit, and I will take photos after that, but it is done, and I am super excited. It was a pretty instant gratification knit, even though I didn't knit it as fast as I had hoped. I think it took me like about 3.5 weeks. And I ended up using something around, I think about 850 or 900 yards. and the kit had come with, I think, about $11.50. It's like a 220, 225 skein, and I used 4 of them. So that's how I got there. More notes are on my project page. I enjoyed knitting this sweater. I think I will enjoy the finished product. Again, I did make modifications, and if you're not for a sweater that is kind of oversized and doesn't have a lot of shaping, this one may not be for you. I was just looking for a good weekend sweater. So I am excited this is done, and I am counting this as a finish in my whips for April. Again, we are having a whip along in the group, works in progress. Pull them out, finish them. Doesn't matter what they are, crochet, knitting, spinning, sewing, weaving, get them done. Every finish earns you a post in the finished objects thread, and there will be some prizes that I will draw for at the end of the month. If you don't have any whips, cast something on. Now you have a whip. Great. So that is, I believe I had this cast on at the very beginning of the month, just barely, but I decided that I was definitely going to wear this one, or finish this one. So that's number 1, finished. 2, I am working on my banana leaf wrap, and that is by, and I can never remember the name, but I have the pattern here with me. It is the Banana Leaf Shawl by Yuki Ueda, and it is just a kind of a textural knit and purl back and forth. The ball has gotten smaller. I did not weigh it. Last week I was at 60 something grams. I'm going to go with maybe I'm at 40 this week, but I will have to weigh it to be sure. This is Northbound Knitting BFL Silk Lace in her signature color Metallurgy, and I knit quite a bit more this week. Last week I actually put a stitch marker in, or a progress creeper, where I had gotten to, so I probably knit close to a foot this week, which is very exciting. It is growing. I don't know if I will actually end up finishing this one by the end of the month, but if not, I have made significant progress on it and will finish it in May. I am just happy because this is one of those things that I really, really want to block and wear. And actually it hasn't even been so bad knitting it this month. I have kept it as my project for work and everywhere because it is super simple. It's basically just a couple rows. You have to do a little bit of changing to get the knitting and purls, the knit and purl sections, but so technically it is a 40 row repeat, but it's basically the same thing on both sides of the row. So, or it's basically 2 different rows and you do roughly the same thing every row, or every other row. So that is where I'm at. Again, this is her signature color Metallurgy, which is silvers and bronzes, and it's probably going to make me look like death. Yep, makes me look pretty pale, but I can't wait to have it. And the BFL Silk Lace is just really lovely up against the skin. So I will keep working on this one until I finish, and I will replace my, in fact, I'll do that right now. I will replace my stitch marker. So next week we can talk about how far I have gotten, and this will continue to be my on the road project. So I've been knitting this at knit night. I knit this during Franklin's talk on Friday. I've just spent a lot of time on this one. So I am pleased with that, and will continue and maybe finish that this month. If it doesn't get finished, I will live. So now that I finished that sweater, it is time to pick up another work in progress and work on it for the last, I guess 8 or 9 days, 8 days of the month, 9 if you count today. And so I picked up Mom's Blanket. As you know, I have been working on this one for a while. When I last brought it, it had 81 squares on it, so 9 by 9. I am working on 10 by 10. I have one side completed in the 10 by 10, and then I am working on the other side. I have 30 squares until this is finished, and then of course I'll need 2 weave-in ends, and I think I'm going to do an I-cord border on it like I did on my own right here. So I have more work to do. Again, I don't know if this will get finished by the end of the month. My current goal is to finish knitting all the blocks by the end of the month. So that is 30 more blocks. So I'd have to knit a couple in evening, which I think I can probably manage. And well, I guess I'd have to knit about 4 an evening to finish by the end of the month. So we'll see how that goes, but I am kind of gung-ho to just get this one done, and then maybe I'll just do the I-cord edging should probably only take me a couple of evenings, so even if it takes me into early May, that will be delightful to have that finished. This is what it looks like so far. This is, technically this is a 9 by 10 because I just put my 10th row on top, and now I'm working on my 10th row on the side. So, and I've got a square actually attached at the moment, this light pink one that I started last night after I cast off my sweater. So I will be working on that for the next week, and if I'm lucky, may even get to bring it to show you next weekend as mostly done. If I could get through all the squares by the time I next record and weave in all the ends and just have the I-cord edging, I would consider that a total win for April. And technically when I speak to you next Sunday, it will be April 29th. So I will still have one more day after that. So that is the plan. I have some tech editing to do this afternoon, and then my plan is to sit with my blanket. So that is it for the knits. Spinning is a super quick report. There has not been much spinning because I was not home most of the evenings this week, but I started on those gradient braids from Fiber Optic. And this is as far as I have gotten. If you remember, they start at a really, really light teal and go into kind of a smoky dark navy blue. And I have gone through the very light kind of aqua color, and I'm through the teals, and I'm getting towards the darker blues leading into the smoky section. I would say I am about halfway done with the first braid, which is not super far for an entire week's work. But my hope is to get moving on these this weekend. I was hoping to finish the full 8-ounce spin by the time April was over. I don't know if I'll actually get there, but I'll just keep on keeping on and get there with that. So, sip of tea, and then let's talk about knitting in the Heartland. I am super lucky to have an active knitting guild in the area. And they produce a biannual conference called Knitting in the Heartland. And it is held here in Kansas City at a local hotel. In past years, it has just been a Saturday and Sunday. This year, it was a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we usually bring in big names. In past years, we have had Stephanie Jappel, Fiona Ellis, Stephanie Pearl McPhee, the Yarn Harlot, and actually we have had Franklin Habit before. But we decided to bring him back this year. So the Knitting in the Heartland hosted Franklin Habit and Edie Ekman as our 2 headliners this year, and thus expanded into a 3rd day. And Friday morning, I took a class with Franklin. He was teaching a class called Steeks and Zips, which is learning how to cut a steek, cut a hole in your knitting, and then he was also teaching how to hand sew a zipper into your knitting. And I primarily took the class because I wanted to learn about zippers. While I would by no means consider myself an expert on steeking, I have steeked before, and I've learned a few different methods, and so that part I was more comfortable with than I was with the zipper portion of the class, and I thought I might as well take advantage of Franklin's expertise and learn how to do that. So the homework was that we had to knit this swatch for class. It has sections of checkerboard and then sections of stripes, basically creating places to steek in our sample. And we did that in prep for the class, and then Franklin talked about steeking and about how to steek. And basically then he got us ready by learning how to reinforce our steeks with a crocheted technique. And I'm not going to give away too much of the information on that because, of course, this is the reason to take his class. So I am just sort of giving you the highlights of what we learned. But basically there is a technique where you use crochet to reinforce the edges on the sides of where you are going to cut. And once you have done that, you go ahead and cut. Once you have cut, you tack back your cut edges, you sort of fold them back, and if you have done them correctly, they'll kind of curl all on their own, and you can tack them down lightly with some whip stitch, and then if you want to put in a zipper, you can. So what I learned was we crocheted the reinforcements. You can see on one side, I used one lighter color and one darker color. You can sort of see the edges of my crochet reinforcement. That is just because I didn't fold it back enough to hide that. You can certainly fold it back to hide it in a finished garment. I just didn't worry about it that much. And then Franklin provided us with zippers, and we discussed how best to pin in your zipper and sew it, and what techniques would be best for hand sewing a zipper into your fabric. So that is what I learned. It is a zipper. It does indeed unzip, so my swatch can zip and unzip. And part of the reason he had us knit a larger swatch was so that we could repeat the process if we felt we needed the practice. Like I said, I have steeked before. I have actually steeked and written a couple tutorials on how to steek recently. So while I don't consider myself an expert, that's not a problem for me. I would like to learn how to put in zippers. So I think I'm going to have to think about what sweater I might like to do in the not too distant future that I would like to put a zipper into. And frankly, I could either steek or not steek. And put the zipper into it. You don't have to steek to put a zipper in. So now that I know how, I am looking forward to using that technique. So the class was a morning class. It went from 9 to 11. It was delightful. Franklin is... he is a stitch. If you don't follow him, he is kind of sarcastic and he has a definite personality, but I really like him, and I learned all kinds of little things, and I just enjoyed listening to him talk. So that was what I did in the morning. I then had lunch with some friends, and we killed time until the keynote in the evening. The keynote was scheduled for 6:30. So we just sat in the hotel and we knit all afternoon. Some people took classes. There were classes all day Friday, as well as all day Saturday and Sunday, but we didn't take them. So we just sat and we knit, and we had coffee and delicious cheesecake, and it was just a really nice Friday off of work. And then about 6 o'clock we got into line. And at 6:30, we listened to a really neat talk by Franklin. It is one of his newer talks. And again, I'm not going to give too much away because the point is that you should attend his talk somewhere if you can. It was a talk about the women who were influential in his life, and then a series of designs that he created for them. He created a shawl series to honor the women in his life. And it was interesting hearing about the women in his life and about his influences growing up and sort of how he became the knitting personality and designer that he has become, and then also seeing some of those things reflected in the patterns that he took quite a bit of care in designing for his family members. So it was a really nice talk. He is an extremely nice person, and I actually got to talk to him a little bit afterwards, and it was wonderful. So I can highly recommend that if Franklin comes to a city near you or a place that's not too far for you to get to, you should definitely go and take a class with him or listen to his talk, or both. He does a variety of classes, and most of his classes are based on techniques that are not super difficult to do, but that people are a little intimidated by. Like I was intimidated by the thought of putting a zipper into something. And so he likes to take those techniques and break them down and try and teach them to people. So currently he's doing a lot of embroidering and some weaving and a few other things. So if you are interested in taking classes from him, I can highly recommend it. I did not take any classes from Edie Ekman, but I heard her classes were fabulous, so you could check those out as well. So after the keynote, if you came to the keynote, you got to do a little sneak preview into the marketplace, and of course I did a little bit of shopping. I was fairly restrained. I'll say fairly because I did buy a sweater quantity of yarn, but I didn't buy too much else beyond that, and I had intended to buy a sweater quantity of yarn. So the first thing I did was I made a beeline for my friend Christine's yarn. She is Treasure Goddess Yarns. I have used her yarns in the past, and she has a little pirate sheep. And this is her Treasured Warmth worsted weight. It is 100% superwash merino wool, 218 yards, machine wash and dry flat. And this is her, she has pirate themed colorways, and this is her Song of the Sirens. It is a delicious kind of plummy reddish purple, and I got enough to do a sweater for Miss Roxy. So I have not decided what Roxy's sweater is going to be yet, but I did not have enough worsted weight in my yarn stash to do a sweater for Roxy. So I needed to get something, and I had decided that I was going to get a sweater quantity. So it may look like I wasn't restrained, but I was restrained in that sense because this was a planned purchase. So it was just what color I was going to get. I knew I was going to need about 4 skeins. So I got that for Roxy, and I will be working on that very shortly. I have to decide what pattern, but I think I might cast this on in May. Now these are all hand-dyed skeins, and they're all just slightly different, so I will definitely be alternating so as not to have anything showing. But I think she'll really like that. And they're very semi-solid. There are certainly a few lighter parts and a few darker parts, and they were dyed in different parts in the pot, so, but they are delicious. So I can't wait to knit with those. The other yarn that I purchased 2 skeins from Potions Yarns, and she is another semi-local dyer. She's done a couple trunk shows at a local yarn store, and I had heard quite a bit about her. This is her label. It is Potion Yarns, and you can find her at potionyarns.com. Both of these are her Banshee fingering base, which is 100% superwash merino, 438 yards. This one is a pleasant patina, and you can see it's turquoise with bits of brown in it. And then this one is called Pixie Dust. It is white with pretty much a rainbow of colors, and I got them to do together into some kind of speckled shawl. So that was my other purchase, the quote unplanned purchase for me, but I just really wanted to try some of her speckles. I love speckles. I'm so tempted by them, and I never really know what to do with them, but at the same time I know that this will be a really cool shawl. A friend of mine is going through a phase where she is knitting a whole bunch of shawls by Casa Pinka. I don't know what the designer's name is, but that's the name she designs under. And she does a variety of 1 and 2 colored shawls, speckles, semi-solid, solid, or variegated and solid. And so I cannot decide exactly what I'm going to do, but this might be a Casa Pinka shawl. So those are my purchases, and that means the buying season is mostly over for me. I've been trying to be really good and not buy too much, mostly used from stash. And I had these 2 conventions, Ply Away and Knitting in the Heartland, back to back, but I don't have too much else coming up in terms of knitting places to go. So that might be it on my purchases for a while. So thanks for tuning in. I'm sorry I didn't have a ton to show you, but I hope that you have had a good week, and by next week hopefully I'll be able to bring you more almost finished objects, and I will start talking about what I am going to work on in May. I'm super excited to cast on some things. I haven't decided. I'm thinking, because it's warming up, I'm thinking I might be moving towards shawl season. And so I'm thinking I might cast on a new shawl. I don't know whether I'll cast on that one, or I have some yarn that I tried to turn into socks, and it has been balled for several years, and it was kind of on my mental list to get to this year. And last night while I was lying in bed falling asleep, I came up with an idea for it. So that might be my next cast on project. I also have my Cherry Blossom socks, which I want to finish, and those socks for Northbound Knitting that I want to cast on. So I think that's probably my May. I'm guessing finish up some things, maybe start Roxy's sweater, maybe start a shawl. So I hope that you have a wonderful week, and until I see you next time, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!